Good morning, everyone. First, a really heartfelt welcome to everyone for joining us today. This is a day that our team looks forward to over the whole year. We really love having the support of you as you report on the industry throughout the year. And we appreciate you taking the time to come and join us to spend a day as we wrap up 2025 and we start to look ahead to 2026 and prepare for all of the exciting news that will be before us. We have a big program for today. You'll find it on your desks. We'll try and cover all of the main topics of the industry. There are lots of opportunities for you to ask questions. We'll make sure that we have that built into the program throughout the day. I would ask that you identify yourself and your publication before you ask a question. That just helps us understand the context from which the question is coming. And I would appreciate also that you raise your hand in order to be recognized before you ask your question. And we'll try and get to as many people as we possibly can. In terms of today, for this first session, we'd like to start it under embargo. What does that mean? Embargo, yes. So no stories, no tweeting, no social media. You can take a break from all of that for the first 2 hours until 10:30. At 10:30, this session will finish. We'll announce that the embargo is over. Then you can do whatever you want from 10:30 onwards. We will distribute the Outlook release in the room, so you'll have that as a document, probably about 9:30 or so this morning when we come to that. And at 11, so a half hour after the embargo in the room, we will distribute the press release externally on the Outlook. So you'll have a 30-minute advantage as well over the outside world in starting the reporting. Again, what time is the embargo? 10:30. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. We also have a team here from the comms department, from the regions, as well as those based here in Geneva. They're largely at the back of the room, so they're here to help you throughout the day as well. We'll start this morning by trying to review a little bit the key issues or some key issues from 2025. I'll do that by asking our Director General, Willie Walsh, a few questions. During that period, we will eventually get to the Outlook announcement, and once that's made, we'll throw it open to questions from the floor. Very similar to the format we've done in previous years. So with that, Willie, I guess first question would be looking back at 2025 and considering our top priority of safety, is there anything that stands out in your mind as highlights from 2025?
Thank you, Tony, and good morning, everyone. Well, obviously, our focus on safety continues, and I think the events during the year demonstrate how important it is that our industry continues to evaluate and investigate every incident, every accident that takes place, so that we can learn from these events to ensure that we don't see a recurrence going forward. And it highlights yet again the importance of reminding governments of their responsibilities under ICAO Annex 13 to formally investigate these serious incidents and accidents and to report in a timely fashion. And I'm pleased to say we have seen some of that during the year, and I think everybody would appreciate how important that is, because the information that we can get from these accident investigations clearly point us in a direction. While not explaining fully what has happened, the interim reports do give us a reasonable understanding of what might have happened as we await then the detailed investigation and the publication of the reports. But these reports are absolutely critical to the ongoing safety performance of the industry. So I'm pleased as an industry that we continue to maintain the focus that we have. Our industry continues to have an excellent safety record despite the events that have taken place. And I can assure you that all of these events, while tragic, the investigations into these events will help to ensure that they don't recur. One thing that does cause us concern, and this is evident mainly through social media, more and more we're seeing where aircraft are being evacuated that we see images of customers taking their baggage with them as they evacuate the aircraft. I cannot stress how important it is that if an instruction to evacuate the aircraft has been given, you need to get out of that aircraft as quickly as possible. There is nothing more valuable in your hand baggage than your life. And I find it shocking, actually, that we continue to see images of people stopping, looking in overhead bins for their hand baggage before they evacuate the aircraft. It is absolutely critical in an emergency event, if an order to evacuate the aircraft has been given, that you evacuate as quickly as possible. And these images are very worrying for us, and we intend to do more research as we go through the year into these events to try and better understand, what is happening. But, past investigations and past research into this phenomenon clearly demonstrates that, you are putting not just yourself, but other passengers at risk if you stop to try and retrieve items from the overhead bins. So, we are concerned by the images that we've seen. It seems to be becoming more and more a common feature of evacuations that we see pictures of people evacuating the aircraft, going down slides, carrying their hand baggage with them. And this is something that I think as an industry we will have to address and focus on. So you can expect us to continue to do some research and investigation into this, because quite honestly, I think it is a dangerous phenomenon, and we need to get the message out there that, evacuating an aircraft is an extremely rare event, But if you're on an aircraft and the order to evacuate is given, get out of that aircraft as quickly as possible. I can assure you, if I'm on an aircraft and it has to evacuate, I'm not waiting for anything or anybody. I'm getting off the aircraft, because I've seen what can happen when people delay the evacuation. So it is a worrying trend and an issue that we intend to focus on. But again, we would highlight the fact that it's critically important for our industry that any event is properly investigated and that reports are issued in a timely fashion and in accordance with obligations under ICAO Annex 13.
Great, thank you, Willie. Another thing that comes to mind is, as we're approaching the end of 2025, is the 25 by 2025 initiative on gender diversity in the industry. The final report won't be out for several months until we get the full year data for 2025, but we have seen some incremental changes. I guess my question would be, how do you view that initiative, and in what context would you see that in the industry?
I think this initiative has been very positive, and we clearly have made progress, and more progress in this area will be important. But as an initiative to highlight the problem that our industry faced, I think it has been successful. We are seeing a significant increase in female representation in senior levels of our airline members and the airline industry at large. I think we now have 4 female CEOs on the board of directors, which is a very positive development. More needs to be done, but I think this has got to be now embraced by the industry. They've got to want to do it because it's the right thing to do. So as an initiative, I think it's fulfilled the objectives that we had. I think it has raised awareness. I think it has shone the spotlight on this issue. We continue as an industry to focus on the challenges of recruiting and retaining talent, like every business. But we clearly have a bigger task than most, because historically our industry has been male-dominated, particularly in certain areas like the engineering, mechanical and pilot jobs. We are seeing progress there, but this is something that's going to take a long time to change. But I'm pleased with the results that we have achieved. I'm pleased that the issue is now firmly on the agenda. I'm pleased that airlines have embraced the need to ensure greater gender representation in their employee bodies, and particularly to have greater visible female leadership in the airline industry. So I think as an industry we've made good progress, but I don't think we can afford to relax. I think this is going to be an ongoing challenge for our industry, and we have to continue to get the message out there that this is an exciting, fantastic, rewarding industry for men and for women, and that there are great opportunities in all areas, and in particular in the technical areas, for men and for women, and to continue to encourage women in particular to look at the airline industry as opportunities for employment. So, as I said, pleased with the progress. I think the report, I'll be surprised if the report doesn't show that we have achieved the objectives, because the figures that we've been monitoring as we've gone through the campaign have been very encouraging. So I think some good work has been achieved, but more work needs to be done.
Great, thank you. Also, keeping that number 25 in mind, we're in 2025. We've got 25 more years before we reach the 2050 goal to achieve net zero as an industry. Marie will give a full update on that later on today. But in advance of that, how would you characterize progress in 2025? And do you see anything particularly concerning for you with respect to achieving the 2050 goal?
Yeah, I have to be honest, I'm disappointed at the pace of progress, and there are some worrying developments that we've witnessed during 2025 that Marie will cover off in her presentation. But we're not seeing SAF produced in the volumes that we had hoped for and had expected, and that is disappointing. And looking forward into next year, we're clearly disappointed at the progress that we see being made in 2026. I said when we committed to net zero in 2050 that it was going to be extremely challenging and that it was going to be expensive. I think the challenge we're facing now is even greater than we had expected, because we're not making the progress that we had anticipated in terms of SAF production. The demand for SAF continues to be strong, but we're not seeing a corresponding increase in the development of SAF. And I think the regulatory framework, particularly in Europe, has been unhelpful. We've not seen the mandate that the EU introduced leading to greater production of SAF, but we have seen it lead to a huge increase in the price of SAF as fuel suppliers, in my opinion, abuse their position to extract additional money from the airline industry through these compliance fees that they've introduced, which are artificially increasing the price of SAF for airlines who are trying to comply with their obligations under these mandates. And Marie will go into some detail of that. So this is an area of great disappointment. And I said this on a couple of occasions during the year, that I think airlines who have committed to high levels of SAF in 2030, and we know that there are quite a number of airlines around the world who have made commitments to 10% of SAF by 2030. Personally, I believe those figures are now impossible to achieve. I think it's going to be challenging for the industry to achieve the 6% that the EU has mandated and the 5% long-term target or interim target that ICAO was looking at. And we expressed our concerns about those targets early on. But personally, I believe 10% of SAF in 2030 is just beyond the reach of the vast majority of airlines, through no fault of their own. I think in good faith, these airlines made commitments to utilize SAF. They had expected to be able to acquire SAF in much greater volumes than is possible today. It's not an issue of price. It's an issue of availability, and they're just not able to get their hands on the SAF that they require to fulfill the ambition that they expressed. So I think that it's going to be regrettable that a lot of these airlines will have to reevaluate their commitments to SAF utilization in 2030 and reassess what is going to be possible for them. And as I said, I think that will be disappointing for the individual airlines who in good faith made these commitments, had the ambition, had the resources, but have not been able to access the supply of SAF that is required. So I think you're going to see more and more airlines. I think Air New Zealand, to their credit, led the way when they suspended their targets for various reasons, including the unavailability of SAF, but also the significant delay to the delivery of new aircraft as a result of supply chain issues. They just, as they reevaluated their progress, concluded that it was going to be impossible for them to meet the commitments that they made. And I suspect we'll see a lot of airlines do that as we go through 2026, particularly where airlines have obligations to report non-financial measures. So that's going to be, I think, a difficult issue for these airlines, but I think it's important to highlight that it's the failure of supply that has caused this reevaluation of targets. So, as I said, Murray will give you a lot more detail in her presentation, but we are disappointed. Murray will tell you, as an economist, she's not surprised what has happened. You mandate the purchase of a product that doesn't exist or exists in short supply. It's inevitable that you're going to see prices rise. But I think what is surprising for me is that EU regulators in particular are standing back and watching fuel suppliers abuse their position by significantly increasing prices under this false label of compliance fees, so that they're protecting their profitability while at the same time failing to deliver on SAF production. So we've got to shine the spotlight on the people at fault, and the people at fault are the regulators for introducing a regulatory mandate that has driven this behaviour, and the fuel suppliers who, quite honestly, are just price gouging and ripping us off because they can get away with it.
Great, thank you. That's, I think, very clear. So moving on, another issue that I think developed over the year is tax. So in some cases, we had some good news. In mid-year, Sweden eliminated its aviation tax. We heard from Germany that they're looking at reducing their tax from midway through next year. On the other hand, we have governments like the UK, which continue to hike tax on aviation in line with, I suppose, with inflation. And we see other governments or other initiatives like the Solidarity Levy kind of coming onto the scene. So I guess, Willie, my question to you is, which of these trends do you think is going to dominate going forward? Are we going to see more governments following the Sweden example? Are we going to see more following the UK example? And how can the industry better express its concerns on taxation?
Yeah, taxation for me is a critical issue. I've always argued that if taxes are being introduced on environmental grounds, that's a con job. There's no evidence that taxation does anything to improve environmental performance. In fact, I would argue the opposite is true. One of the things that our industry has successfully done is to become more efficient in how we utilize the fuel that is generating the CO2 that our industry is responsible for. And this is principally through a significant increase in average seat factors. So we're filling more of the seats of the aircraft. We're more efficient in how we operate. Taxation doesn't reduce CO2. Taxation reduces the number of people who are able to fly. The flights still operate. They'll just operate with fewer people sitting on the aircraft. there is zero environmental benefit, and there's plenty of evidence to demonstrate that. I think it's encouraging that we are seeing some governments recognise that their introduction of taxes on environmental grounds have led to economic damage, and they have taken the decision to reverse the taxes that they've introduced. The UK is, I think, is different. My experience, I think the UK has just got hooked on APD. It's like a drug for them. They've, I suppose, been a bit more honest in recent times, where they say it's not an environmental tax, although introduced as an environmental tax, it's not. It's just a tax to raise revenues, because the UK economy is sluggish, and they need to raise tax revenues everywhere. So I think APD is more a reflection on the quality of the UK economy rather than anything else. And I think if the Chancellor of the Exchequer had genuinely driven an economy that was growing, I think you might see a more responsible attitude towards some of these taxes that could help to fuel growth in the economy. So I'm optimistic by some of the measures that I've seen. Our responsibility at IATA is to continue to highlight the risks that governments face if they do introduce these taxes. In many cases, you get well-meaning people doing research into what might happen in theory without looking at what has happened in reality. I think the best example I can give of that was when the Netherlands introduced a travel tax back in, I think it was 2007, 2008. What they didn't appreciate was that people will go to incredible lengths to avoid paying these taxes, and that's what happened in the Netherlands. They just crossed the border and took flights from other airports rather than pay what the government thought was a very low level of tax. And we see that all the time. So where these taxes are introduced, people are incredibly inventive and will look for opportunities to avoid paying the tax. And with a global industry, it's very easy for smart people to be able to do that. So I think introducing taxes in the interest of the environment is zero benefit, and we can prove that. Introducing taxes without doing a proper assessment as to the risk of leakage, I think more and more governments would be wise to better evaluate the risk of the tax being introduced when people can take measures to avoid it. And we'll continue to highlight the risks for everybody when we get to this sensitive issue as we go through 2026.
Great, thank you. Over the year, we've talked a lot about supply chain and the challenges that's brought to the airlines. We have with us our expert, Stuart Fox, the Director of Technical and Flight Operations, to give us an update on the numbers around that. And then Willie will ask your thoughts on how you see that issue evolving and if there are some solutions in the offing.
Yeah, it's very annoying, I think, is probably the nicest way to describe it. We had the board of directors meeting here last Friday. All of the CEOs again highlighted the frustration that they have with the supply chain issues and the ongoing delays in resolving this. I think, to be fair, there's a greater awareness that it is going to take much longer to address than we had anticipated, because I think just about everybody would have expected it to have been resolved at this stage. What's very frustrating, though, for the industry is where we see the cost that our industry is bearing. And we produced a very good report in October, middle of October, I think it was, which, for those of you who haven't seen it, is available on our website, which detailed the costs, the additional costs that the industry is bearing as a result of the supply chain disruption, which we estimated to be just over $11 billion US. And you can see from the report where these costs come from. An obvious one is the increased fuel burn, as we're flying aircraft that are older than the industry average as a result of delays to the supply of new aircraft. the additional maintenance costs associated with operating these older aircraft, the additional leasing costs associated with the scarcity of leased aircraft, the requirement to hold additional spares. It adds up to an incredible figure of 11 billion. And clearly you'll see in the presentations today our forecast for profitability in 2026 and the updated 2025 outlook. But, we're still an industry operating with net margins of less than 4%. And what I find very frustrating, if you look at our operating margins, less than 7%, 6.7, 6.6 sort of figures in that order. And then you look at our key partners, as they like to call themselves, key suppliers, key OEMs, and the ones I've been highlighting recently are the engine OEMs. If you look at GE Commercial Engines and Services, third quarter, 9 months of this year, operating margins 27.6%. 27.6%. These are margins that are unattainable by our industry. So the people who are, if you like, causing the problem because they're delaying the production, because they're facing supply chain issues, are improving their margins. GE improved their margins in the 9 months this year by 2 points, 27.6. Safran, I don't have their third quarter results, but half year, 23.3% operating margins. Honeywell, I think 26%. So these guys have been using supply chain disruption to increase their prices to the airline industry. Our partners, we're all in this together. They're making massive margins at the same time as imposing huge additional costs on the airline industry. This is unacceptable and it's got to stop. And that's why, we've got to challenge these guys. How is it that they feel comfortable making margins of 27, 26% at the same time as doing an absolutely shit job of producing their product and making them available to the industry and forcing us to incur additional costs? So, this area is really somewhere that we're going to have to tackle more strongly. I've said before, we are evaluating if there are any legal opportunities available to us, competition law opportunities. It's a very complex area, but we believe we have to look at this because it's just not sustainable that these key suppliers can be generating margins like this, improving their margins at the same time as forcing our industry to incur massive additional costs.